taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Melody McAllister, and this is my book chat. And I have an amazing author today, Miss Nicole Biscotti, with her son, Jason, and they wrote a wonderful book together. Nicole and Jason, congratulations on your amazing book. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, sorry. And also I just wanted to give a shout out to Nicole. We worked together. We did our birthday book bilingual read aloud last week. She's the one that translated the I'm Sorry story in Spanish. So I'm so grateful that you are here. And I did read your amazing book. But before we talk about your book, let's talk about who you are. Nicole and Jason, will you just tell those of us who are watching, who the heck are you?
Well, I'm a mom. I'm originally from New York City. I live in Yuma, Arizona, which is pretty fun, actually, because it's 20 minutes from Mexico and 20 minutes from California. We like road trips. So that's cool. I like to travel. And I'm a Spanish teacher in a high school. And I really have learned a lot about ADHD from Jason and from this journey that we have been on together.
Awesome. Awesome. Jason, do you want to add anything? It's okay if you don't.
I don't really have anything to add.
Okay. Well, I think it's great. I think that it's so cool that you're here and that you helped write this book with your mom. And one of the things that we're going to talk about when we talk about I Can Learn When I'm Moving, going to school with ADHD, is that you put Jason's own words in the book and you left them italicized, and you left them in his language, which I thought was brilliant. And when you wrote that, you did that because you could hear him, like the run-on sentences. We don't need to worry about grammar, things like that. I could hear him in my head, and I don't even really know him that well. So I think that was such a genius and bold move for you to do. I'm glad you did that. So tell us a little bit about how you began this project.
Thank you, Melody. Yes, and I did leave the wording exactly how Jason said it. He would use talk to text, and then I would only edit, how talk to text could suddenly sound like a McDonald's order when you're talking to something else, and it gets all weird. So I made sure it was like what he was saying, And then we would go to Starbucks, or we would go places, pre-pandemic, and we would sit and we would go over what I had edited and make sure Jason was okay with it. And sometimes he would correct things. Sometimes he would not like the words that I used, or it's not how I said it, Mom. So I really tried to be very, very true to Jason's own words. And in all reality, that's how the book started. It started because, as most moms or teachers of ADHDers know, I was always looking for ways to help Jason calm himself and, have that space between action and emotion. So one of the things that we tried for a while was journaling on my phone. And after a while, I realized I would go back and look at them, and I realized that we were really creating a narrative and that there were common themes. And then I began to do research about those themes. And then on Twitter, I started to connect with other people about them and other educators, other parents. So that's really, the book started from his words, really.
That's incredible. And I do remember at the very beginning of the book how he said that he enjoyed it. Like he felt like he was learning about himself when he was talking about it with you. And then throughout the rest of the book, it was just what I took as also is just that our students who are struggling with something, and maybe they're not neurotypical, the more that we help them understand why and who and what's going on, the better they are able to manage what is, seen as non-neurotypical.
Absolutely. And I think that was one of the big benefits of the book. There was a lot of benefits for us personally, in the sense that even though I was pretty familiar with having conversations with Jason about Jason, because anybody that has a kid with ADHD can tell you that you have a lot of conversations with educators about your kids and a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings. And I thought that I was pretty in touch with his perspective on things. But when I started asking questions based on what I was researching and learning, I really learned a lot more about how he felt about things.
Yeah, I was pretty amazed at your honesty. Like you really didn't leave anything out. You talked about your feelings, and you talked about like even medication. And these are all things that I have. These are all things that, sorry, hey, shh, shh, shh. Got my kids in the room. That I have also struggled with as an educator. And I wondered, you even talked about how you waited for medication till the very end, and you were very educated on it. You knew that there were going to be side effects, but you just felt like he needed to be successful. This is the world we're living in, and it was going to be to help him to be successful. And I'm just wondering, so how did you approach that, and how do you, like, you said that you're not going to give medication. Like, I know it's a very personal thing, and I'm only talking about this because you brought it up in the book. I would not and tell me if I'm making you uncomfortable, but I just love that you did. I feel like, and as a teacher, as an educator who's had a lot of students with ADHD, and the medication thing is really, really big, and I don't know that parents feel as empowered. And so I think that this is just a great way. What would you say to those parents or teachers about the medication part of it?
I approach all of these kind of controversial issues around ADHD with a very open mind and heart. And I think that I have had to learn to do that. So any preconceived ideas that I had have definitely been shot down and in this journey, and I've had to learn. And originally, I did not want my son on medication. I was very afraid of it, actually, for many reasons. And then there came a point where I realized, the turning point for me was when I realized that Jason's self-esteem was suffering too much. By me digging my heels in, and this is not to tell anybody what to do, what not to do. It's a very personal decision, as you mentioned, and everyone's very different. In my situation, I felt that because of my position, I was exposing my son to too much difficulty. He was fighting too hard because I was refusing the medication, and it was affecting his self-esteem. He was starting to express that he didn't feel that he was good at school. And Jason, like all ADHDers, is brilliant. So that was a heartbreaking thing to hear from him. And I certainly didn't want my son to feel that he couldn't succeed academically. So we did medication for a while. I also want to say that while we did medication, and since we've had to do medication, I've also been working very hard with other strategies concurrently. At this particular time, Jason doesn't take medication. He takes omega-3, which has helped somewhat, but I don't feel like I could give an accurate answer about it because we've been doing that in education. So we haven't done that in the classroom setting yet.
Right.
I'm definitely very humble in this process and could not say that he'll never be on medication again. I just don't know how it's going to be.
Yeah. There are a couple of people in my life who, since their kids have been remote learning, that were on medication. They have not continued medication at this time, and they feel like they're making progress and kind of everything that you're writing, like the behavior things, and just helping to regulate or see what's coming so that they can deal with it instead of just, always the reactions. But I'm glad that you put that in there because it's something that I struggled with also as an educator when I had to fill out the form of observations. I always felt like I'm not a medical expert, and sometimes I don't know these children yet very well, and I felt terrible that I may be the deciding factor on whether they get medicated or not. And that always felt like a really big burden to carry when I thought about a child's health. And so I was just really like, wow. Your transparency in this whole process really amazed me. Also, Jason's transparency. He didn't mince words. He told it like it was.
Jason does not mince words. He's very honest. He's very articulate, and he's also very careful and thoughtful in the way that he speaks, in terms of being honest and accurate, which is something that's really been helpful for me. You know, he would get in trouble, and he would say they would say oh, well, he kicked someone, and then they kicked him, and he would say, no, I punched him, I spit on him, and I kicked him, but it's because he kicked me first. I've always been able to rely on what he says, which has been very helpful.
Yeah, like that's kind of like abnormal too, because I know that my own children, it's hard to have them take any responsibility for anything. That is something that is a theme in my house lately.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, Jason, because that ain't happening here. But I love that. And after every chapter that you write, you give like 3 reflection points. And like you write about it, and so I think it's great for parents and teachers to read. I wish that when I was reading this, I was like, where was this when I was in the classroom? Like I needed that, because we're all struggling, and you're very, very honest about that too. We are all struggling, but this isn't going away. We've had ADHD around since, the beginning of time. We just haven't given it a name. And so there were also myths that you debunked in your book. What was the myth that drives you the craziest about ADHD?
I think the most frustrating piece from the parent side is when I have to defend recess for a child that has hyperactive in the name of his disorder, or when I have to have conversations over and over about why my son doesn't complete work when he's inattentive because he has ADHD. And, that can be frustrating, and I have to keep myself in check and be really patient with people. But at the same time, when you go back to the myth, I think that a lot of us, whether it's conscious or not conscious, are still looking at ADHD behaviors through a lens of good and bad behavior in the classroom, and not putting it in the correct context or lens of why these behaviors are occurring.
Right. Yeah, I'm serious. I hope that the teachers that are watching, like taking away recess, really for any child, but especially children with ADHD, it's just like it's archaic. It's archaic, and it's really it's like cruel and unusual. And we're finding that out more. And we're actually hurting ourselves in the long run when we do take away that opportunity for our students to move freely,
Well, and that's the thing, excuse me, is that, are we hurting ourselves or are we hurting the kid? Because
both.
There was one time where I became very frustrated with a particular teacher because he wasn't completing his math worksheets. So her response was to take away his recess. And I'm not saying that Jason shouldn't be subject to different punitive measures like anyone else, but they need to make sense and be a learning opportunity. So unfortunately, at one point I would think in my mind, okay, lady, maybe I should just not write you back. Take away his recess, have a great afternoon with that one, But then when I calmed down, I realized that the person that was going to have a bad afternoon was ultimately going to be my son, because then we're putting him into a position where he hasn't had an opportunity to release his energy. He's probably going to get into trouble again. And then it becomes more frustration towards Jason. But is that really fair that we're setting kids up like that? And I don't think it is.
Right. Yeah, and when we set kids up like that, we're also setting our own self up. Like it's just a cycle. It's a vicious cycle, because we can't teach when we don't have their attention, or we don't have them. Like if they don't like us or they don't care, because we've already made them mad, like it's just a vicious cycle. I'm not saying it very articulately, but I completely agree with you. So yeah. What was it like? Just, you have a lot of people that have contributed to the books. I was so surprised, like Melissa Sidebotham, she is watching. I saw Academic Mindsets. So this was a very big community effort that you put together. I saw Barbara Bray's work. How did you get all of that?
looking back, I don't even know how I had the guts to ask all those people. Like I asked people that I followed and learned from, and I was just like, "So, would you like to share something in my book?" And that's one of the biggest gifts that I've gotten as an educator and as a mother in this process. That these people have so much expertise and were willing to do this, right? And really, it comes from the idea that I believe that there are whole class accommodations that we can have for everybody that do address the needs of our ADHDers and other exceptional learners, but actually raise achievement for everybody. So I'd really like to move away a little bit from this. Yes, we do need 504 and IEP accommodations. That is a protected legal right. I'm certainly not going to discount the importance of that. But rather than teachers with 150 plus students having to remember everybody's accommodations, we can shift it like how you were saying that when we're in a better space with our students, things go better. And we can kind of shift that cycle by being proactive. So that's why I approached all these experts in different areas to get their take on that idea and how we could bring it in with specific content areas.
I love that. And you said it so much better than I did. But when you're in a positive space with your students, your teaching and your learning is going to be more positive. I love that. And yes, everything that was put in there, it is for every learner. And something else that you address is that ADHD is not a learning disability. Like it can empower students when they are taught how they learn, like when they're given that space to be who they are, creative geniuses. Watch, they're going to be creative geniuses. And then you even talked about people in history that probably had ADHD.
And that's something I struggle with, that I did use the word disability or condition several times in the book, because really, if I were to be 100% honest, I think that my son, who is the ADHD that I know best, of course, right, is brilliant and has a lot of potential in many different ways that that obviously my brain doesn't think. And I think that about all ADHDers. However, in the context of education, when we're speaking with educators, there's this idea of behavioral problems or need for support. And in the way that we do things in education, when someone has a disability, which ADHD is listed as a disability by the American Psychological Association, then we know that we need to provide support. So that is why I framed it in that way in the book. But I really hope that it doesn't come off as diminishing the ability of ADHDers in any way, because their potential is really
right.
amazing.
And I probably said it wrong, so I'm glad that you made it more clear. But yes, you did that very well, that they have potential, that they just needs to be unlocked a lot of times. And you also talked about how, ADHD doesn't look like the same thing in every single kid, and just that it goes underdiagnosed in girls, especially. Like there's just so many myths out there that my eyes were like, oh yeah, like there are some things you put in there we've heard over and over and over that are just at this point degrading. And you addressed all of that. And I feel like I'm a better person for reading it. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for reading it. I just want to say it was scary as heck to write this book. And then around the time that it was getting published, at first we were like, oh my gosh, we finished, right? Like it's going to happen. And then, okay, here's the proof. And we got the proof. We were like super excited, right? Yeah. But then when people started buying it, I don't know about Jason, but I was like, oh gosh, I hope they like it. Like,
oh my gosh, I hope they like it, Jason.
Yeah, like I put my heart into this book, and then I put my baby's picture on the cover.
And Jason, you are so handsome. So a great cover it is for sure. How are you and Jason changed for writing this book together?
Do you want to take that first or me?
I want to take that first.
Okay.
So first I felt like I was struggling all alone. But now that this book is out, I feel like people care, like kids like me and teachers and stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great feeling. Gosh. Does it feel really lonely to have ADHD at school and feel like people don't understand you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like
Can you shut the door? Is there like a what?
It's kind of like a barrier.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Sorry, I had to close the door. I could hear my kids, and I apologize if you could hear it too. Definitely a barrier. So you feel like that barrier has come down a little bit, at least?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We definitely care. I love that Betsy said that we care. And Melissa said, I love that you acknowledge the difficulties that both sides face. You did that very well. Very well. And I know it's hard to put a book out there. It's like your heart, and like you said, it's your baby. But this was a great one. This is not like the same old out there. This is something new. I wish that I had read something like this before I became a teacher, because I always felt like I was learning hard lessons on the job that could literally be to the detriment of my students. And when we're in the lives of you know what I mean? Like, I think it's such a wonderful thing that you both worked on this together. How does it make you feel though? How have you changed?
If I could just address
Nicole?
what you said. Thank you. If I could just address what you said, teachers feeling like we don't always know how to handle these things. I just want to point out that I'm not even a SPED teacher. I'm a Spanish teacher. I've learned all of this, of course, because I have a son like this, and I've done a lot of research, but I just want to really message to teachers and parents that we don't always have the answers. I don't always have the answers. Jason's 10. We're still, going through his education. I certainly don't always have the answers. But I think that, and this might sound simple, but I feel strongly that it's very powerful to just let kids know how much you care, to ask questions, to not make judgments. And I really feel like if we just work on bridging understanding and helping them sort through what they need at the moment, that's powerful. So we don't have to always have the answers per se, but just changing that lens from you're being bad, I'm taking your recess away, to okay, you move around a lot during class. What is it? Do you need to take breaks? What do we need to do? Just changing that lens, I think, is powerful. And then to go back to your question, what has changed after writing the book? I think that I learned a lot, like I said, about Jason writing the book and about other students, and really just that major validation piece of, oh, it's not just us going through this. There's so many people, there's so many teachers that feel the way that I feel. Every single person that has sent me a message or responded in any way or bought the book and reached out to me and told me that they did, it really, really touches my heart. It means a lot to me, because this was not a pretty journey in many moments. And you said that I said everything in the book. There was actually an incident that I didn't share in the book that I think I would like to share, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
So I didn't share it because I was almost done writing the book and it was too big. The library.
What do you mean?
I want to talk about the library. Remember the library thing?
About the principal?
Yeah.
Didn't we already say that in the book?
No.
I think we did.
No, we didn't put that in the book.
Oh, I thought we did.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. So there was an incident. I used to live in an area that was lower income. So I'm pretty sure, a lot of the parents, I don't think they had as much access to information or resources as I did at the time, or many of them didn't. So long story short, a lot of kids, well, we were at a school event, so all of our kids were with us, and certain parents were told to go to the library. So we went to the library, and in the library, we were scolded by an administrator with teachers present about how our kids were bad and were causing problems, and no matter what the teachers did, they were not behaving, and that eventually it was going to be the law enforcement that was going to be having these conversations with us, because we apparently were not consistent with our discipline at home and all these other assumptions about our parenting. And because, like I said, this meeting was on the heels of a school event, we all had our children with us in the room. And, I think that was probably the worst incident. And I don't even think I was ready to share that when I was finishing the book up. But that's...
A different one.
Huh?
I thought you were talking about the one, Miss Yeah. Or,
Oh, no, that's in the book. You're right. But this is the reason why we have to have these conversations, because I need for all the parents in the room, in rooms like that, because if I was in a room like that, having that conversation, well, I didn't have a conversation, having it had to me, and being shamed that way. This is happening,
Right.
you know.
God, I can't even believe. I mean, I can believe it. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. It's so ignorant. But it
Yes.
goes back to what you said. Like, if we keep that non-judgmental attitude, which it seems simple, like you said, but it's not. Like, our judgment is rampant. And you talked about in the books how we teacher shame people, how we shame parents. It's such a part of our culture these days that non-judgmental piece, it's hard to find. You have found a way to create this conversation with others, with the hashtag ADHD Global Convo, and part of that is you're breaking down barriers between parents who've had like a miserable existence with school communities. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I'm looking for ways to communicate with parents that were basically in my boat or are in my boat. And I'm looking for ways to collaborate and to communicate with educators that also are looking for better ways to support ADHDers. So what that's going to look like, or what that does look like, are blogs that I share about best practices. I'm going to be doing some webinars. I'm really, really excited to do book studies, because I really want to have conversations with people where we can start to discuss these things with honesty and looking at best practices. I think Jason wanted to say something. What do you want to say, buddy?
I remember that the library, I remember she said, the principal, they said, I'm forgetting now, well, I don't know what you're teaching them at home, but so basically she scolded the student and the parent.
How did you feel when that was happening, Jason?
If I'm going to be honest right now, if I'm going to be really honest, she sounded so stupid I almost laughed. That kind of sounds rude.
He doesn't mince words. No, he doesn't mince words. Just say it like it is.
I'm just grateful that he felt that way.
Agreed. Well, Nicole, it's the testament of how you are raising him, completely the opposite of what was assumed. And I'm sure that there were more parents in that room with you doing their best, advocating for their children, feeling like they were up against a wall, students feeling like there were barriers, just like Jason addressed. Hey, sorry, and here my kids are talking. I'm so sorry about that. That just totally, I apologize for that, y'all. So here, I want everyone watching to know that this conversation, like Melissa said earlier, needs to keep happening. And you've actually created a wonderful space, a Facebook community. And also, if you just follow the Twitter hashtag ADHD Global Convo, you're going to find that. But this, I dropped it in the comments because I hope that more people, educators and parents, or maybe even adults who are struggling, because you put that in the book also, that there are people that have been undiagnosed and they're still struggling because nobody gave them, nobody was able to help them when they were younger. So kudos to you for this.
Thank you.
And I hope more, thank you, Rochelle. Thank you. Yeah, it is wonderful to hear from them both. How is the Facebook community going? Is it in the beginning stages? I know I'm a part of it.
Yes, it's in the beginning stages, but it's something I really want to grow, because I really do want to create this space where people can talk and have honest conversations and collaboration. And we don't all know the answers. So let's get together and start talking and listening. I didn't, I have almost 2 master's degrees and part of a doctorate, and I never knew anything about ADHD. That was never even like a chapter in a book that I read or anything for school. So we're all learning. And as a mom, I didn't know what to do either. Jason's my 4th child. And I didn't even know where to start. Like I share in the book, I was very scared.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, we are coming to the end of our time for our book chat, but I want everyone to see that you can find this amazing book at www.bit.ly/I-can-learn-when-I-move. And I do really recommend this. I hope that principals, if you're watching this, will buy this for your teachers, put it in your school library resource. If you are a pre-service teacher, oh, I cannot tell you how much this is going to help you before you go into that classroom. But regardless of where you are, and I think that a lot of teachers that are open to children who learn differently, they're already doing amazing things in the classroom. I think this will help validate a lot of the stuff that they're doing, but also give them just a little bit more help, because the things and the ideas that you put in there are not crazy, outlandish things. It's like talking about developing a mindset and being more communicative with your students, and just things that, like, even getting that friend you talked about, Amira, and I mean, I could just give away all the secrets of the book, but I'm not. Read the book.
And I would
Don't
just like
spoil it.
don't spoil it. Jason said those are spoilers. And I just would like to say that for teachers and for administrators that might want to share this with their staff, I would love to do a book study with your staff, because I don't want this to be a cute book that you read and put down. I really, really want to support parents and educators in continuing these conversations.
Melissa says there will be a copy in her staff room. I want you to know this is a beautiful, beautiful book, but it is definitely not like a cute book in any way. Like, it's a real book, and I love it. I'm so honored that you guys came on tonight. Thank you so much. I hope that if you're watching, you'll continue to follow the hashtag or be a part of the community. Thank you all so much for joining, and we will see you again next week. Oh, somebody want to get all there. Yes, Melissa, I totally agree. Also a great book to check out to parents. Yes. And I think that you do such a good job, Nicole, of being a parent and an educator, showing both sides. And I think that's why this book is such a brilliant piece of art or work, piece of art. But you know what I mean? It truly is brilliant, even though obviously I'm not very articulate.
No, you are. Thank you. And I appreciate that validation, because when I was writing, I kept feeling like I had to be like a parent or a teacher, but I realized I can't split myself. So thank you for saying that was a good voice, because it's the only voice I have. I'm both. You know?
You are. I love it. Well, bye, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us too.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Thank you
And thank you
yes,
for the people.
anytime.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, thank you all so much. Whether you were tuning in from Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, we are so glad you joined us tonight, and we will definitely see you next week. Take care, and I hope that you will look more into this conversation and this book. Best of luck to you. Bye.
Thank you.